Hello, Trinity Episcopal Church. It's Tuesday, May the 26th, 2020. Just some announcements and then a little talk. So, the announcements are that this coming Sunday, that's going to be May the 31st, which is Pentecost, we'll be having coffee hour at 9:30. Then we'll be listening to a prelude by Dr. John Deaver, and then we'll be joining the diocesan-wide Pentecost service. We'll have a watch party for that I'll be hosting. So that's this coming Sunday. On the 14th of, I'm sorry, I want to talk about the virtual picnic because that involves a little bit of planning. That'll be happening on June the 14th, but we're going to be starting before then. And so it's going to go like this. On Thursday, June the 4th, we're going to be asking you to submit recipes for a simple side, salad, or dessert. So please submit the recipes by that Thursday. We'll publish them in This Week at Trinity on Friday, that is the 5th. Then during that week, you'll simply pick somebody's recipe to make, not your own, but somebody else's. Take pictures of it, send in the pictures of that that will be the 11th of June, Thursday the 11th of June. And then on the 14th of June, during worship, we'll be showing a slideshow of the dishes that we have made. So that's the virtual picnic. There'll be more information about that, again, in This Week at Trinity this week, also in the June newsletter. So I hope you'll plan on joining us for that. On June the 7th, which is Trinity Sunday, that's our patronal feast day, we'll have special music. We'll be debuting some changes to the worship space, and I'll be talking about the theology and history of morning prayer during my sermon so that we can better understand what we're going to be doing for several months. So that's June the 7th. On June the 14th, that Sunday, Joe Obrakta, our virtual deacon, will be preaching. And Joe is also leading, during the month of June, a virtual rosary group. So that'll be happening on Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m., beginning on June the 9th and continuing through June the 30th. There'll be more information in This Week at Trinity and the June newsletter about that. So lots more coming up and going on. I was going to do a behind-the-scenes tour this week, and that didn't work out. We just had some technical problems with that. So that'll be happening in 2 weeks. So I have to go back to something, I'm afraid, and that is to talk about what the next steps are here at Trinity. I've had some questions, again, about are we going to be reopening as other denominations have been reopening? And the answer to that is no. As we have talked about previously, we need to meet the 6 marks of health before we can think about reopening our parish building. And that is a declining rate of infections for 14 days, monitoring of new infections, contact tracing, adequate hospital supply in case there's a spike in infections as businesses and other places reopen, the availability of widespread testing, and then adequate personal protective equipment. Now, this still holds true. We've shifted slightly. We're not looking at a Kentucky-wide model for this. We're looking at a regional model, according to the bishop. So we're going to be looking at the health data from the Cincinnati metro area, which will take in data from northern Kentucky and then Ohio, in the Cincinnati area. So this means that in the Diocese of Lexington, that rural and smaller congregations may be reopening prior to larger congregations in metro areas. So that means that the Northern Kentucky churches may be some of the last to reopen in the diocese because we are going to be facing higher rates of infection. More people. Makes sense. Now, I said we're shifting our approach a little bit, and that is happening diocesan-wide as well. The bishop, after looking at data on how the coronavirus spreads, is going to allow congregations to worship outside. And Trinity will be taking part in that. We'll be waiting till July to do that because right now the Governor Beshear says we can only gather in groups of 10, and beginning in July we'll be able to gather in groups of 50. So we're going to wait until July. We'll have a trial run of this on July the 19th, and we'll be using the North Lot. So we'll have 50 people in the North Lot, physically distanced, probably more than 6 feet just to be safe. And so we'll be mask wearing for that. And that'll be our first trial run. Now, we'll be doing this. There'll be no communion because we cannot physically distance and have communion. And there'll be no singing because we know that singing is a great way that the virus spreads, even with masks. And the CDC has said that large gatherings like this should only happen occasionally. So it's not going to be a weekly practice. It'll be a monthly practice. If all goes well during the July trial, we'll be doing this in August. One date in August, I haven't decided the date, and September, and perhaps early in October so we can have the pet blessing. So that's coming up. The trial run is coming up on July the 19th. And even though we'll be having outside services on those dates, we'll still have the regular streaming service we've been having, to the service of morning prayer as well. And I'll be working with a committee on all this to iron out the details of how this is all going to work. Now, I said we're not going to be reopening until those 6 health measures are met, and this is going to be a challenge because as businesses reopen, perhaps as schools go back in, as other things begin to happen, it's going to be harder and harder to maintain our position. But we need to do what we need to do based on data. And we may have to make adjustments because we may be learning more as time goes on, and we might be able to open in a different way. I just don't know yet. I can't make predictions. When they ordained me, they did not give me that ability, unfortunately. So as I said, people may want us, maybe pushing us to reopen sooner. I can't do that until we see what happens, until the health marks are met for the Cincinnati metro area. And we know that we can reopen safely with physical distancing, mask wearing, all the things that we know about now. So I would ask your patience in that, and I would also ask your faithfulness in worship. I know that it is hard to sit in front of a TV or a computer screen and feel as though we are worshiping together, but I think we'll get better at it and we'll be able to be more, perhaps, interactive as time goes along. Well, what we're seeking then is a balance between being safer, we can never be totally safe, and wanting to gather. And we'll be calibrating that as time goes on, adjusting as we need to, but I hope that we can then, at some distant day, then come back into church feeling as comfortable as we can, knowing that there will be a risk, but that we can gather in a safer way. That's my thoughts for today. I know that we've talked about this from time to time, but I just want to reiterate that. If there is anything that you want me to talk about or someone you want me to talk to, because I did an interview with Rick Worth a couple of weeks ago, please let me know. My email address is rector@covington.org, rector@trinitycovington.org. And while I won't see you in church on Sunday, I'll be watching the same service that you will. I hope you're well, and I hope you're happy.